Hey everyone, this is Jeff Murray. I wanted to continue the conversation on the Odyssey, specifically the Robert Fagel's translation of the book. And in this particular video, we're going to look at book 19, which is titled Penelope and Her Guest. And this is a time when Penelope and Odysseus are side by side. Of course, Odysseus still maintains his secretive, his disguise that Athena gave him, and talks one-on-one with his wife that he has been longing to see, yet he does not give himself up. There is one person, though, who figures it out. And we'll see what happens as a result of that and how the great tactician, Odysseus, makes this all work out to his benefit. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to start taking a look on 390, beginning about 3 lines down. We saw, well, before I do this, we saw earlier when Odysseus was talking to his son Telemachus, he said once, like, what I'm going to do is, or what we need to do, or what I need you to do is probably the more accurate way to go about this. What I need you to do is I need you to get all of the armory, the weapons that we have, and make the excuse that we need to put them away for fear of smoke damage, okay? The idea is that they want to lock all of the weapons away so that whenever they start to fight the suitors will look around and there are no weapons. Okay, that's essentially what they're trying to devise this plan here. And so what he told Telemachus a few books back was that, hey, what you need to do is kind of make this big production like, well, I'm going to put these things away so that they don't suffer any more damage than they already have. And so, people are like, yeah, you go ahead and do that, Telemachus. When really what he's doing is making it so that they will have an advantage whenever the fighting starts with, between Odysseus, Telemachus, and the suitors. All right, so we see that repeated here. This is the beginning of line 3. It says, now we must stow the weapons out of reach, my boy, all the arms and armor. And when the suitors miss them and ask you questions, put them off with a winning story. I stowed them away. See, this is a repetition from before in the storytelling. I stowed them away, clear of smoke, a far cry from the arms Odysseus left when he went to Troy. Fire-damaged equipment, black with reeking fumes, and a god reminded me of something darker too. When you're in your cups, a quarrel might break out. You'd wound each other, shame your feasting here, and cast a pall on your courting. Iron has powers to draw a man to ruin. Okay, so that's the winning story that he is to give about why he's putting all of these things away. So, okay, we're back to that. Okay, so in essence, what we see here is this is continuing on. They are moving forward with their plan to set it up so that they can take on the suitors, and the suitors have little to no recourse in how they're going to fight back. All right. Let's see. So we've got the next page, 391. Let's say about line 33. She, being the nurse who was in attendance there, she barred the doors that led from a long hall, and up they sprang, Odysseus and his princely son, and began to carry off the helmets, studded shields, and pointed spears. And Pallas Athena stood before them, lifting a golden lamp that cast a dazzling radiance around them. So even as they're doing this, even as they're going and putting this, Athena is there, and Athena is helping them along the way. And Telemachus even notices what's going on. He says, Father. Telemachus suddenly burst out to Odysseus, oh, what a marvel fills my eyes. Look there. All the sides of the hall, the handsome crossbeams, pinewood rafters, and tall columns towering, all glow in my eyes like a flaming fire. Surely a god is here. So he senses the presence of the divine, of Athena, as they are doing this. All right, and I find that very interesting that that's the case. All right, so on page 392, we'll see Penelope coming down. And just listen to the way that it's described, how she comes down like she is royalty. That's absolutely certain. But listen to just the beauty and the just magnificence, I would say, that she is, brought into this particular sea. That longer break that's there, the longer section after the break that's there, says, "Now down from her chamber came reserved Penelope, looking for all the world like Artemis or golden Aphrodite. Close to the fire her women drew her favorite chair with its whorls of silver and ivory, inlaid rings. The craftsman who made it years ago, Igmalius, added a footrest under the seat itself, mortised into the frame, and over it was draped a heavy fleece. Here Penelope took her place, discreet, observant. The women, arms bared, pressing in from their quarters, cleared away the tables and heaped remains of the feast and the cups from which the raucous lords had drunk. Raking embers from the braziers onto the ground, they piled them high again with seasoned wood, providing light and warmth. And yet again, Melantho, who is one of the nurses, one of the attendants of Penelope. So this is one of the female attendants of Penelope. Yet again, Melantho lashed out at Odysseus, thinking he's a beggar, don't forget. "You still here? You pest, slinking around the house all night, leering up at the women? Get out, you tramp, be glad of the food you got, or we'll sling a torch at you, rout you at once." All right, so mistreating this beggar. All right, but this beggar, who is Odysseus, replies back to her, and we'll see some of that on page 393, about line 88. It says, "So beware, woman," he tells her, "or one day you may lose it all your glitter that puts your workmates in the shade, or your mistress may just fly in a rage and dress you down, or Odysseus may return. There's still room for hope. Or if he's dead, as you think, and never coming home, well, there's his son, Telemachus." All right? Like father, like son. I want you to hold on to that. Like father, like son. And you'll see this here in a moment when Telemachus is able to do something that proves he's really coming up into his own, and he's becoming more like Odysseus, so much like Odysseus, and in ways like Odysseus, that no one else is. So he's an unmatched contender to take over after Odysseus is gone. And I'll point that out when we get to it. All right, but just keep that in the back of your mind. All right. It says, "Like father, like son, thanks to God Apollo, no women's wildness here in the house escapes the prince's eye. He'll come of age at last." All right. So he warned, and alert Penelope heard him, wheeling on the maid, and tongue-lashed her smartly. "Make no mistake, you brazen, shameless bitch. None of your ugly work escapes me either. You will pay for it with your life, you will. How well you knew. You heard from my own lips that I meant to probe this stranger in our house and ask about my husband. My heart breaks for him. He's here. He's serving a purpose. You know it. Knock it off." All right. So at the bottom of 393, that very last line there, we hear from Odysseus says, "My good woman," Odysseus, master of craft, replied, "no man on the face of earth could find fault with you. Your fame, believe me, has reached the vaulting skies. Fame like a flawless king's, whose dread the gods, who governs a kingdom vast, proud and strong, who upholds justice true, and the black earth bears wheat and barley. Trees bow down with fruit, and the sheep drop lambs and never fail, and the sea teems with fish, thanks to his decent, upright rule. And under his sovereign sway the people flourish. So then, here in your house, ask me anything else, but please, don't search out my birth, my land, or you'll find my heart overflowing even more as I bring back the past. I am a man who has had his share of sorrows," right? And I think that's interesting. I'm a man who's had his share of sorrows. If you've seen the movie, and if you haven't, I can't recommend it enough. The movie is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's a Coen Brothers movie. And Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, it says, is loosely based on the Odyssey. And the song that recurs throughout that is a song, I am a man of constant sorrow. I've seen trouble all my days. All right. Just thought I had to bring that up there, make that connection for you. So he says, it's wrong for me in someone else's house to sit here, moaning and groaning, sobbing so. It makes things worse, this grieving on and on. One of your maids or you yourself might scold me. Think, it's just the wine that has doused my wits and made me drown in tears. And then Penelope, she responds back to him. And she tells a lot of the things we already know about, weaving the shroud for Laertes, about, the suitors and all this kind of stuff, all right? So at the bottom of 395, though, Odysseus starts to tell his story. And of course, he does this like he's done it before, where he tells a story of his background, but it's not the truth. It's not the actual story that happened, where people start to think, how much can we trust Odysseus? I mean, he's lying about all this stuff to his wife's face right now. And he's telling another story of, this is how I got here. So, he tells the Phaeacians his story about how he got there, and that's what the story of the Odyssey is. But he tells so many other stories of how he got here. Some people start to think, well, how much of this is Odysseus telling his story and how much of it is clever Odysseus getting what he wants out of the situation, all right? I'm not here to make that judgment call, but I have known that people have brought this up and been concerned about this before, all right? Because, he's just a mastermind to get what he wants. But, and it even says down there at the very bottom section on page 25, the master improviser answered slowly, my lady, wife of Laertes' son, Odysseus. He starts to tell his story. But it's interesting, as he gets into the story a little bit more, he starts to talk about Odysseus and his time with Odysseus, and he's dropping clues to Penelope, so that Penelope starts to listen and say, yeah, you were with him. You know about this, okay? And it really piques our interest. And so I'm going to be beginning on line 210, about there on page 396. Now, it was there in Knossos that I saw him, Odysseus, and we traded gifts of friendship. A heavy gale had landed him on our coast, driven him way off course, rounding Malaya's Cape, when he was bound for Troy. He anchored in Amnisus, hard by the goddess's cave of childbirth and labor, that rough harbor barely riding up the storm. He came into town at once, asking for Idomeneus, claiming to be my brother's close, respected friend. Too late. 10 or 11 days had already passed since he set sail for Troy in his beaked ship. So I took Odysseus back to my own house, gave him a hero's welcome, treated him in style, stores in our palace made for princely entertainment. As for his comrades, all who'd shipped with him, I dipped into public stock and gave them barley, ruddy wine, and fine cattle for slaughter, beef to their heart's content. A dozen days they stayed with me there, and those brave Achaeans, pinned up by a north wind so stiff that a man even on dry land could never keep his feet. Some angry spirit raised that blast, I'd say, and then on the 13th day the wind died down and they set sail for Troy. Okay, so this is how I know Odysseus, is what Odysseus himself, as a beggar, is making up on the spot. All right. And then it's interesting, the very next line says, falsehoods all. Okay, everything he just said was BS, of course. But I find this next part interesting. It says, falsehoods all, but he gave his falsehoods all the ring of truth. Maybe there's some truth to what he was saying. Maybe he's making his story, but relying on a true aspect of the story, and it's believable, and Penelope buys it. Okay, I find that interesting. Now here comes a nice epic simile. As she listened on, her tears flow and soaked her cheeks as the heavy snow melts down from the high mountain ridges. Snow from the west wind piles there, and the warm east wind thaws, and the snow melting swells the rivers to overflow their banks. So she dissolved in tears, streaming down her lovely cheeks, weeping for him, her husband, sitting there beside her. All right, it's interesting. She's weeping for her husband, sitting there beside her. All right. She even asks him down there about line 251, come tell me, what sort of clothing he wore? What cut of man was he? What of the men who followed his train? All right. So he's going to talk about himself. All right. So he's going to get these things correct, and so he should know about that. All right. He mentions the clothing that he wore. I noticed his glossy tunic too. This is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines in. On page 398, I noticed his glossy tunic too, clinging to his skin like the thin glistening skin of a dried onion, silky soft, the glint of the sun itself. It goes on and on and on about the clothing that he wore. And it's interesting because about line, let's say 285, says, his words renewed her deep desire to weep. Skipping 3 lines to about 289, says, now stranger, much as I pitied you before, now my house, you'll be my special friend, my honored guest. I am the one myself who gave him the very clothes that you describe. So of course, Odysseus is going to say, Odysseus as the beggar is going to say, I remember this particular thing that he was wearing. And lo and behold, it's the very thing the very clothing that Penelope herself gave. So now she's really got buy-in to believe what this beggar has to say, because he knows details that are so hitting so close to home for Penelope. She says, I brought them up from the storeroom, folded them neatly, fastened the golden brooch to adorn my husband, Odysseus. Never again will I embrace him, striding home to his own native land. A black day it was when he took ship to see that cursed day. Destroy, I call it. I hate to say its name. I find that interesting. She doesn't call it Troy, she calls it destroy. The word Troy is still in the word, right? All right, so it's Penelope's little play on word. I'd rather call it destroy than just Troy, because it has demolished my life. It has destroyed my livelihood. It has destroyed my marriage. It has ruined everything. That city of Troy and all the stuff that played out in the Iliad. All right. He goes on, oh my queen, but here around line 309, it's interesting. He says, I will tell you the whole truth and hide nothing. Really? I have heard that Odysseus now, at last, is on his way. He's just in reach. In rich Thesprotian country, the man is still alive, and he's bringing home a royal hoard of treasure, gifts he won from the people of those parts. His crew? He's lost his crew in Hollow's ship on the wine-dark waters off the Thracian island. Zeus and Helios raged, dead set against Odysseus, for his men-at-arms had killed the cattle of the sun. So, down to the last hand, they drowned in crashing seas, but not Odysseus, clinging tight to his ship's keel. There's a considerable bit of truth to that from, what we know of his other stories that he's told. All right. Going down a little farther, let's see about line 326. It says, in fact, Odysseus would have been here beside you long ago. But he thought it the better, shrewder course to recoup his fortunes roving through the world, a sly prophet turning. There's not a man alive to touch Odysseus. And I raised the question there. So Odysseus, as a beggar, is sitting across from his wife that he hasn't seen for 20 years. And his wife is distraught. She's so incredibly upset with everything. He says, but he was trying to recoup, some of the, wealth. So he's been kind of, on a treasure hunting mission to try to get things back over this time. And I thought to myself, is that a good enough excuse for her? I don't know. I don't know if I would accept it. Different times, different people, I guess. All right. On page 400, about line, let's say 345, he says, and so the man is safe, as you can see. All right, so he tells a story about Odysseus and Odysseus being safe, but I find it an interesting play on words again, where he says, and so the man is safe, as you can see. Of course, as you can see, Penelope, he's actually sitting right next to you. And he's coming home soon. He's close at hand, closer than you realize, okay? He won't be severed long from kin and country. No, not now. I give you my solemn binding oath. I swear by Zeus, the first, the greatest god, by Odysseus' hearth, where I have come for help, and will come to pass. I swear exactly as I say. True, this very month, just as the old moon dies and the new moon rises into life, Odysseus will return. All right. Penelope, about 4 lines down from that, says, but my heart can sense the way it will go. Odysseus, I tell you, is never coming back. Nor will you ever gain your passage home. For we have no masters in our house like him, at welcoming or sending off an honored guest. Odysseus, there was a man. Or was he all a dream? Like, he's too good to be true. These guys who are all around here, they suck. All right, they're bleeding me dry, okay? Odysseus, he was a real man. He really knew how to welcome people, to send them off, to give them what they needed. He never would have played it out like these guys around here do, all right? She goes on page 401, about line 373. For how can you know, my friend, if I surpass all women in thoughtfulness and shrewd good sense, if I had allowed you to take your meals at hall, or so weather-beaten, clad in rags and tatters, our lives are much too brief. If a man is cruel by nature, cruel in action, the mortal world will call down curses on his head while he is alive, and all will mock his memory after his death. But if a man is kind by nature, kind in action, his guests will carry his fame across the earth, and people will praise him from the heart. All right? So it's interesting that we have it this way because, you know, these suitors are not being kind. They're being cruel. They're throwing stools. They're being violent, okay? And they're just abusing their privileges, okay? But a kind-hearted person, he says, you know, all people will praise him from the heart. And that's exactly how she's characterizing Odysseus. So what she wants is she wants her women to attend to him, right? And she wants to provide him a place to sleep for the evening, and she wants to, you know, to bathe him and to, you know, get him all situated, you know, wash his feet and all this kind of stuff. So you can see here on page 401, line 393 or so. It says, of all the women who serve your household here, not one will touch my feet. This is Odysseus talking. Unless perhaps there's some old retainer, the soul of trust, someone who's borne as much as I have borne. I wouldn't mind if she would touch my feet. All right, so this is setting something up that's very important right here. He requests an older person, and he's going to get somebody that he knows quite well, someone named Eurycleia. All right, we'll see this in just a second. She replies and says, dear friend, the sweet Penelope replied, never has any man so thoughtful of all the guests in my palace, come from some foreign parts, been as welcome as you. So sensible, so apt is every word you say. I have just such an old woman, seasoned, wise, who carefully tended my unlucky husband, reared him, took him into her arms the day his mother bore him. Frail as the woman was, she'll wash your feet. Or frail as a woman is, she'll wash your feet. Up with you now, my good old Eurycleia, come and wash your masters, equal in years. Odysseus must have feet and hands like this by now. How hardship can age a person overnight. And of course, Odysseus's hands and feet must be like this by now. Well, of course, they're exactly like that. They're the self-same feet. All right? So, Eurycleia goes to work, and let's see. on line 421, 2, 3, 4. It says, "The work is mine. Icarius' daughter, wise Penelope, bids me now, and I am all too glad." This is Eurycleia speaking. "I'll wash your feet, both for my own dear queen and for yourself. Your sorrows wring my heart, and why? Listen to me closely. Mark my words. Many a wayward guest has landed here, but never, I swear, has one so struck my eyes. Your build, your voice, your feet. You're like Odysseus to the life." She can see through the disguise. It's interesting too, isn't it? Argos, the dog, was so in tune with Odysseus. Eurycleia was Odysseus' nurse when Odysseus was younger, and she's so tuned in too that this disguise that Athena has given doesn't really seem to be doing the trick when it comes to these particular people who are so tuned in to their masters. All right, and yes, the swineherd Eumaeus is also tuned in, but these, she seems to be a little more, may have had more of an intimate relationship with him for a much longer time, being his nurse. All right. He goes on to say, "Old woman," wily Odysseus countered, "that's what they all say who have seen us both. We bear a striking resemblance to each other, as you have had the wit to say yourself." Like, yeah, I get that all the time. All right. The old woman took up a burnished basin she used for washing feet and poured in bowls of fresh cold water before she stirred in hot. Odysseus, still sitting in the full firelight, suddenly swerved around the dark, gripped by a quick misgiving. As soon as she touched him, she might spot the scar. The truth would come out. So this is something we don't know about yet. We've never heard of this scar, but apparently there is a scar that Odysseus has that she, his nurse, would definitely notice if she does notice, she'll know exactly. It will sell him out in a second. Which is interesting, that of all the things that Athena did to disguise him, she didn't take into consideration this scar that is a distinguishing characteristic. That's a pretty convenient thing to overlook for storytelling purposes. All right, continuing on, it says, "Bending closer, she started to bathe the master. Then, in a flash, she knew the scar." Here we go. "That old wound was made years ago by a boar's white tusk when Odysseus went to Parnassus to see Autolocus and his sons." Now, who is this person? Well, listen up. "The man was his mother's noble father, who once excelled the world at thievery, that and subtle, shifty oaths." So this is kind of a shady character, but it is his mother's father, all right? "Hermes gave him the gift, overjoyed by the thighs of lambs and kids he burned in the god's honor. Hermes, the ready partner in his crimes. Now, Autolocus once visited Ithaca's fertile land to find his daughter's son had just been born." Odysseus had just been born, okay? "Eurycleia set him, Odysseus, down on the old man's knees, and he finished dinner, urging him, 'Autolocus, you must find a name for your daughter's darling son.' The baby comes as the answer to her prayers." All right. So Autolocus is kind of tasked with naming this boy. All right. "You, my daughter, and you, my son-in-law," Autolocus replied, "give the boy the name I tell you now. Just as I have come from afar, creating pain for many, men and women across the good green earth, so let his name be Odysseus, the son of pain, a name he'll earn in full. And when he has come of age and pays his visit to Parnassus, the great estate of his mother's line, where all my treasures lie, I will give him enough to cheer his heart, then speed him home to you." So essentially, what we find out is all this stuff that Odysseus has been through, he's only doing everything right. He's living up to his name, all right? And then there is the long story, and I'll let you read that for yourself, how the fight with the boar and how the boar, sort of gouged and left this scar in Odysseus that sets him apart, and Eurycleia sees it and recognizes it. All right. But on page 405, about line, let's say 520, halfway, or 525, about halfway in, it says, his happy parents, his father and noble mother, welcomed him home and asked him of all his exploits. Blow by blow, how did he get that wound? He told his tale with style. Of course he did. He's Odysseus. He's good with words, right? How the white tusk of the boar had gashed his leg, hunting on Parnassus with Autolocus and his sons. That scar, as the old nurse cradled his leg, and her hands passed down, she felt it, knew it, suddenly let his foot fall. Down it dropped in the basin, the bronze clanged, tipping over, spilling water across the floor. Joy and torment gripped her heart at once. Tears rushed to her eyes, voice choked in her throat. She reached for Odysseus' chin and whispered quickly, yes, yes, you are Odysseus, oh dear boy. I couldn't know you before, not till I touched the body of my king. So she totally gets it. Nurse, you want to kill me? You suckled me yourself at your own breast, and now I'm home at last after bearing 20 years of brutal hardship, home on native ground. But now you know. Now that a god has flashed it in your mind, quiet, not a word to anyone in the house, or else I warn you, and I mean business too. If a god beats down those brazen suitors at my hands, I will not spare you. My old nurse that you are, when I kill the other women in my house. All right, because some of these women have been cozying up too much with these suitors, and Odysseus plans to figure out who's good and who's not good, who he should spare and who he should not spare. And he's saying that if you sell me out, you're going to go out like the ones who I'm not about to spare. All right. Child, she goes on. Shrewd old Eurycleia protested. What nonsense you let slip through your teeth. You know me. I'm stubborn, never give an inch. I'll keep still as a solid rock or iron. One more thing, take to heart, I tell you. If a god beats down these brazen suitors at your hands, I'll report in full on the women in your house who are disloyal to you and who are guiltless. I'll sell them out myself, she says. He's like, no, don't do that. I'll figure that out. I want to do my own reconnaissance mission looking into these people, all right? Penelope speaks a little bit and says something that is troubling to Odysseus. On page 407, line 5, let's say 92, she asks, in talking about this, dealing with the suitors, do I stay beside my son and keep all things secure, my lands, my serving women, the grand Hyrule house, true to my husband's bed, the people's voice as well? Or do I follow at last the best man who courts me here in the halls, who gives the greatest gifts? My son, when he was a boy and light-hearted, urged me not to marry and leave my husband's house, but now he has grown and reached his young prime. He begs me to leave our palace, travel home. Telemachus, so obsessed with his own estate, the wealth my princely suitors bled away. Like even saying that she's kind of entertained the idea of what should I do here, all right? But please, read this dream for me. Okay, so Penelope is going to ask Odysseus to read this dream, interpret this dream that she had. Listen closely. I kept 20 geese in the house from the water. From the water trough, they come and peck their weed. I love to watch them all, but down from a mountain swooped this great hook-beaked eagle, yes, and he snapped their necks and killed them, one and all. And they lay in heaps throughout the halls, while he, back to the clear blue sky, he soared at once, but I wept and wailed. Only a dream, of course. And our well-groomed ladies came and clustered around me, sobbing stricken. The eagle killed my geese. But down he swooped again, and settling onto a jutting rafter, called out in a human voice that dried my tears, "Courage, daughter of famous Icarius. This is no dream, but a happy waking vision, real as day, that will come true for you. These geese were your suitors. I was once the eagle, but now I am your husband, back again at last, about to launch a terrible fate against them all." So he vowed. And the soothing sleep released me. He peered around and saw my geese in the house. I peered around and saw my geese in the house, pecking at their wheat, the same trough where they always took their meal. Like, really? You need help interpreting that dream? Seems pretty obvious to me, but... So I'm going to leave you with this last little bit that Penelope says here. And this is very important because Penelope says that she wants to set up some sort of contest. And, you know, whoever can do well in this contest will be someone that I will choose as my suitor. All right. And this is something that we will see later on, because this is actually going to play out, and how it plays out and some of the information we glean from it, especially about Telemachus, is very important. But here's what it's going to be. This is about line 644. I mean to announce a contest with those axes, the ones he would often line up here in the hall, 12 in a straight unbroken row, like blocks to shore a keel. Then stand well back and whip an arrow through the lot. Now when I bring them on as a trial for my suitors, the hand that can string the bow with greatest ease, that shoots an arrow clean through all 12 axes, here's the man I follow, yes, forsaking this house where I was once a bride, this gracious house, so filled with the best that life can offer, I shall always remember it, that I know, even in my dreams. All right? So, there's a contest that she wants to put up, but it's testing to see if this person can fulfill this specific feat that Odysseus used to do. And it's in a way saying, if somebody else can do this, this is a person who is like my Odysseus, and so therefore, I guess I'll go with that particular person. All right? So it's a physical contest, but it's one that requires some skill, that Odysseus was like the only one who possessed the ability to do this on all of Ithaca. So that will set that particular suitor apart from all the others, and therefore she'll deem that one suitable enough for herself. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. The next is book 20, so I want you to read book 20, annotate book 20, have your own thoughts about book 20, and then meet me back here, and I will give you my thoughts. So until then, and as always, I want to wish you all happy reading.